Welcome everyone back to Ford Operating Base Lake Fork. This is going to be a quick update to get ready for the Skeeter tournament this weekend. I'm sitting here in my FXR 21 Skeeter. I love this boat. I really miss fishing the Skeeter tournaments now that I'm guiding, and I'm jealous of everyone being able to fish tomorrow. Fish on Saturday and Sunday. Look, I'm going to talk about what's been going on with the weather and with baits, and what I caught fish on today, and maybe what's going to happen just by looking at the weather forecast and seeing what's going on. So first, let's start with the weather. Over the past 2 weeks, we've had up and down of the water level. It came up, a lot of rain, went back down because we were letting the water out, and then it got up again, and now it's coming back down again. So it's up and down, up and down. That affected the fish in a way that, because I was fishing on the main lake point this morning, and there was a lot of activity going back in these reeds that were there. You just couldn't get back to the fish. I think some of the fish are able to get into places that right now it's pretty hard to get. It's pretty hard to get to them. So some of the shallow water, they're way back in the reeds, so it's pretty difficult. If you get to some places, how can you get to those things? And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But how you're gonna say, hey, how do I get back to these fish? Or do you just not worry about them and try to fish these points where you don't have to worry about the fish disappearing back in the grass? They're going to be playing out here on the point and going deeper, and they're going to be chasing the shad schools around at some point. So that'll affect, the weather's going to affect that. But again, looking at the forecast, we're supposed to get rain on Saturday and Sunday. So it's a little bit of rain. It's 0.3 and 0.4 inches in a day. So that's a decent amount of rain. Doesn't mean it's going to happen all at one point. It could be spread out during the day, but it could mean that the water's going to come back up again. So the water out here on Lake Fork, it comes up pretty quick when we get a rain. So if you get a lot of rain on Saturday, it could come up on Sunday. So again, the weather's going to play a factor here, I guess, as it always does. But just think about that and how you're gonna approach the fish, based on the weather. Just had a big fish hit right back over here behind me. That's pretty funny. But so let's talk about baits and stuff. So right now I'm starting off in the morning throwing at mostly some main lake points. I went and fished some grass this morning over near the main lake areas and had 2 blowups on. I only got 1 fish, but I could hear a lot of activity going on back further in the reeds, and I just couldn't get back to him. So you're really gonna have to think about where you're doing that. If I were looking for a place to go fish, like a frog, in the morning, I would try to find the places where it's some flooded grass that doesn't have a deep reed field, back in it, that the fish can get way back in there, because you just really can't. You're not gonna be able to fish back there. Try to find these areas that have some, flooded grass that's, down in the water, and you're gonna be coming over the top of that. So think about the areas of the lake that you could, find that type of grass to fish in. If the water does come up on the bank, you see these reeds here. This isn't as bad. It's only gets back in there maybe 10, 15 feet. But there's some places where the reeds just go way back in there. You're really not going to get to those fish. It could be pretty challenging to throw into those guys. You can work through the grass, and you can work the grass and throw, just like pitch and flip into the grass and work it that way. There's a lot of places where the grass has grown up really thick, and you could almost punch it in places. But look, there's a lot of grass to punch, so you're going to have to really kind of imagine what it looks like without the grass there, and then kind of think about where you're going to fish. So you go back to some of these areas, and there's a big point there that's got grass all over it. Well, that point in itself would be normally better. So you'd want to try to, if I was going to punch a place, it'd be something that has something there like that would basically hold the fish there, even if the grass wasn't there. Crankbaits. I just caught one on a crankbait here in probably 8 feet of water. It's a pretty. I watched a guy catch. I fished a bridge the other day, and I fished there for about 20 minutes and didn't catch anything. And as I was leaving, a guy pulled up through a crankbait in pretty much the same exact spot, caught like a 3-pounder. So I guess it just happens to you. I don't think we were throwing. It looked like we were both throwing like a white crankbait, white as crow or crankbaits. So it looked about the same. So what happened, I don't know. But it was kind of I didn't like it, but that's fishing sometimes. So I'll go through these lures that you're going to look at. But we talked about fishing shallow, and of course you got to talk about fishing the deep bite on some of these offshore shell beds. Look, there are fish spotted on the offshore spots already, and look, as these tournaments happen, in my experience, I've been fishing those tournaments for 20 years. Now I can't. The fish these first days is really important, because after a while it seems like a lot of fish move out and kind of like suspend in place because all the boat noise. I don't know how many people are going to be fishing the tournament on Saturday and Sunday, but it's going to be a lot probably. Everybody's missing because COVID canceled one last year. I'm betting there's going to be a lot more people. So look, you got the deep bite. So you're going to go out there, you can throw jigs, you can throw shaky heads, you can throw Texas rig worms. There's a lot of things. You can throw DDs, you can throw crankbaits out there, deep. You could throw Alabama rigs, out deep. So if you see the fish are actually schooling on some shad out there deep with your electronics, you could throw Alabama rigs and throw them there. It's almost to the point where you could start to do that. So just think about all the variables, vertical jigging, spoons. It's pretty popular here on Lake Fork. They have the big super spoons that people use. I don't tend to use those big ones because I think it cancels out some of the fish, but I tend to use, biggest one is about 6 inches. I know some guys throw them much bigger than me. And I know some guys are still out throwing swim baits, so big swim baits, and obviously the Bassmasters had a pretty good, they were catching them on, but look, the number one bait, that really caught the most fish, it seemed like, was just a Zara spook, an old walking the dog Zara spook. So, okay, we talked about grass, we talked about the deep. So what do you look for in deep fishing? So right now, I've looked as deep as 25 feet today. So I had an offshore ridge that was in 30, and I didn't see any fish on it, and I moved up the ridge more, and it started to be in the 25 to 20 feet range is where I saw them there. So they're shallower too, I think. So it just depends on where the shad is and that specific part of the lake, how it's acting. You got the north part and south part of the lake. Look at different parts of the lake. Down here at the bottom, it's still pretty clear. Up north, it's still pretty muddy. I was way up in, Coffee and Running Creek, and they were super muddy. So, it can be tough fishing, but you could get a topwater bite even in the muddy water up there. So, you'll have to just, kind of play around with the areas and test to see what's working. So I'm gonna run down just a real quick bait. So look, you have the shaky heads, right? And I'm throwing them on big 10-inch, worms when I'm doing it. These are football heads, so they'll kind of walk. They walk and then they wiggle, and then as it's coming through the water, right? So as you walk it, it's going to make it swim back and forth. I really like that action. Look, this is red flake, and you can throw other colors. I throw other colors too, like a plum. There's a number of colors. You can experiment with the colors, but I like it. Red shad is a good color coming up with the sun's out. Get a lot of color to that. So those are great ways to work these offshore bites. They're pretty weedless. You can work them slow through some timber areas, and you can work this. You can work this even in a grassy area, but that football head isn't perfect for that. But if you've got just random grass, it'll get through it. But you don't want to be throwing in like heavy grass with that. So that's kind of deep, jigs. So most of my jigs right now, and I actually throw the same jig shallow and deep. So look, I've got one. You see, it's like crawfish, or bluegill colors. Sorry, and I throw it around the bluegill beds. That's a half-ounce one. So this is a full ounce. But you'll notice I don't have like a normal trailer on this thing. So I've got basically, what looked to be like a fluke. I've got the tail dyed, and this I can throw this around the beds, walk it through there. It's a big bait, it looks like a big chunk bait for some fish. So you can work this deep down on the humps, and you can work this shallow around bluegill beds. So it's a variable bait to throw. But you remember, the football heads are better kind of for those open areas. They can get logged up in the trees a little bit easier. The pointing ones, seem to come through there a little better. Moving baits and moving baits, crankbaits, right? Big DDs, B10s. You got, this is a Norman bait, 14 feet range. Just kind of play your crankbaits, based on the watercolor, obviously, and what you're doing. Lipless crankbaits, always a good one for picking up some unders here, I think, So I throw the smaller one. I throw the 1/4 ounce one instead of the bigger one. So then you have to talk about, you have to talk about baits that you're going to use on drop shots. So, drop shotting is a big under. That's a big way to catch unders here. You can drop shot almost anything. I drop shot sometimes, big 10-inch worms on bait casters. So, that's if I'm trying to catch big fish. But right now, you could do that tomorrow. I mean, you could do that Saturday and Sunday. But, you're looking for an over, obviously, that way. If you're looking for an under, you kind of want to go with smaller baits, So really finesse worms, real tiny little finesse, worms. That one's a real skinny one. I got one, it's a much fatter, type bait. And don't hesitate, like a centipede. Like a centipede, you can do that one too. Like when all these colors are kind of in that bluegill color, that you're seeing. And then, you can basically throw Senkos of multiple colors, but I kind of, my favorite one to throw around bluegill beds is this, pumpkin seed, the pumpkin color. And so, look, you can throw those wacky, you can throw them, I Texas rig them because I'm throwing into the grass most of the time. But if I tuck it down to a tree, then I can take it off and maybe wacky rig it and drop it into a willow tree type thing. So, so that kind of covers some of the baits. And then, of course, you got the surface, you got the frog. So the different colors, look, you got, look, a white, and I've got another white one on there. I just didn't want to take it off. But I've got the popper frogs I'm throwing, put the smaller one on the bigger one. Look, the frog right now could be a player. I mean, if you're getting a rain on Saturday and Sunday and the water level kind of stabilized and it's not going down, you really want to consider doing probably some grass fishing with a frog. Because if you're getting that rain and it's getting them up in that grass still, and they're not trying to go deeper because it's cloudy, the frog can catch, good unders, and it can catch an over. So, I don't know. There's the fish are so far. There are so many different places right now. It's kind of hard to say a pattern. If you want to focus on one thing, you could do that. But realistically, there's a lot of different ways to catch, fish right now. So maybe you want to look at what your comfort level is and what you're comfortable doing, and then kind of stick with the game plan and do that. Another thing I talked about here, and I didn't really show it. So, look, super flukes, throw the flukes, weedless in the grass. You can throw it on a Carolina rig. You can put some chartreuse tail, dye on the tail. I'll throw that one. I'll throw a white one. Kind of work it pretty hard. It can be a reaction bait, or you can work it slow, like I said, on like a Carolina rig. So, experiment with that. But the fish are eating a lot of bait fish, minnows right now. I'm noticing that some of the bait fish I see them eating in some places back in the coves are those long, skinny ones. They're not the shads. Like those long, skinny minnows. So this does a pretty good job imitating those. So if I was back in some of those coves and I didn't see the gizzard shad, I didn't see the threadfin, and you're seeing more of those longer minnows, I would pick up something like this and throw it back and see how that does for you. So, well, I think I talked about everything except for, we talked about jigging spoons. I won't point these spoons out. There's all kinds of spoons you can throw jigging. But the other thing you can try to vertically jig are these storm little minnow baits. You can put that down in front of the fish and really kind of work it down there. And, look, they'll bite on those too. That's what I usually put on my Alabama rigs. So it's a deep water, kind of moving bait, and you can swim it down there. I guess that's about all. I mean, I'm jealous of everyone out there who's going to get to fish the tournament. I wish I could fish the tournament myself. Good luck to everyone out there. Be safe. Remember, there's a lot of people out there. Let's try to be courteous to everyone. Look, it's the lake is only so big, and there's going to be a lot of boats out there. So just you might have to share spots with every once in a while. So one last thing that could play, but I don't know if it's not sunny, it's gonna be cloudy, it won't play as much. But I've been noticing some of the fish positioning under the docks now already. Yeah, but that's on the sunny days, so I don't think it'll be a factor. Or if the forecasted weather that is right now holds, then it might not be as a factor. But you can always throw Senkos under these docks and throw jigs around the edges of them. So anyway, look, I do want to wish everyone good luck again. And be safe. And from Fort Operating Base Lake Fork, I'm Greg Hill. You guys stay safe and enjoy your fishing.
There we go. There's a nice one this morning. I caught him on a underspin. See, it's just a little just a imitation swim bait. You can see it there. Underspin, looking pretty good, man. Probably about a 4.5 pounder. Nice fish. All right, buddy, go back and let's get bigger. A lot of fishing has just been fishing on these main points this morning. I had a couple topwater bites. That's the biggest fish I've got this morning. So anyway, get out there and throw those. They're still chasing these shad here on these points. So get out there and throw some topwater, throw some underspin, throw some swim bait, throw some chatterbaits. Anything that's a moving bait, rattle trap, crankbait, anything like that will kind of work. They imitate those shad. You should be able to pick up a couple fish. So you guys have a great day fishing.